Ready.
I'll talk slowly for the people who understand some English. I'm happy to be here. It's nice to see you all. Uh, I was talking today on civic intelligence and the future of education, and it's a big topic, and I don't have the answers. But what future of education can we expect? Is it going to be like this? Or like this? But before we gaze into the future, I wanted to say a little bit about where I teach. It's the Evergreen State College in Washington State in the United States, and it's sort of alternative, non-traditional. We teach a lot of our programs with faculty members that are from different disciplines, and we're one of the 41 U.S. colleges that change lives, and so that was kind of an honor. We have narrative evaluations, no grades. We have planning units instead of departments, and there are no required courses, so the students determine more or less what they want to take. Also, we have 46% of our students are really at or below the poverty level, which is quite a high percentage compared to the rest of the country, where it costs a lot of money to go to school. So I was going to say just a little tiny bit about me. It said Dr. Douglas Schuler on the poster, and I do not have a doctorate, so sorry about that. I have 2 master's degrees, but no doctorate. I've been teaching now at Evergreen for 19 years, and actually I went to school there when it first opened in 1976, a long time ago. And then I worked after graduating. I worked at Boeing Corporation for 16 years before I started teaching. I'm interested in civic intelligence. I'm interested in social change. I'm interested in social justice. I'm interested in education for the future, and I'm really interested in this working across borders. I think that that's one of the ways that we can get ourselves out of some of the problems that we're in. If we do work across borders, the last thing here, I started a lab about 4 years ago called the Civic Intelligence Research and Action Lab, and students get together and they work in teams and they figure out what projects they want to work on. And so faculty give some guidance, but it's the students are more or less in control. And I found it to be very exciting, and the students find it very exciting, and I'm curious why it's not done more often. I think it's maybe because people don't want to give away any control to the students. I hope what I'm saying might be interesting to you and useful, and I'm really, I'll say, a radical centrist, and so I am hoping for lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of small changes adding up to big changes. So now comes for the answer of what is the kind of education that will come true in the future. So I have to get out my crystal ball, because that's how you can tell what's coming up in the future. And so unfortunately, I know what I can do. Yeah, this is a little, this is more fancy if I do it this way. Can everybody see, I hope? So what sort of future will we have? Well, here's my crystal ball. You can tell it's not very transparent. I can't really see into the future very well, because the future is something that people create. And so the question really is, what kind of future do we want? That was my that was the only fancy thing in the whole presentation. So I believe that there's a special role for educators, and it really needs to be relevant to today's challenges, not just for the job market, but as educators and as students in educational settings, there's sort of a responsibility to, I'll say, do good in the world. And so one of the things that we need to do is cultivate the problem-solving abilities of society in general, and that generally means not just educating for narrow disciplines, but for branching out. And really, one of the most important things is that we are trying to graduate people that can help solve social and environmental problems. And I think that isn't just a matter of going down the usual paths, but to sort of explore new ones and to be stubborn about this idea of being stewards of our general civic intelligence or collective intelligence. So I think I'll just go by this one, but I'm going to send these slides to Miguel, and we can make them freely available. These are some quotes from Habermas, which I think are really pretty pertinent, but they're kind of addressed later. So these are some of the ways that you can see immediate problems. These are all U.S. problems, but they're shared with other places. The photo on the left was these people that were caught by Hurricane Katrina. The water was rising. Nobody was coming to help them. This top right slide is this junk trash that washed ashore on the beach because people were dumping their garbage. And then, of course, the photo on the bottom right is from a U.S. prison. And in the U.S., you may know that we incarcerate a higher percentage of people than I think any other country, which is sort of a national humiliation, I feel. So these are some of the immediate shortcomings that you see. This slide is a lot more sort of complicated, and it's more abstract, and it shows the systemic way that all of these risks that we have in society are related to each other. And so it's quite complicated. I'm not going to go through it all now. You'll be able to see it on the slides if you check them out later. But it shows how climate change and biodiversity loss, and coupled with economic disparity, and how all of these things work together to sort of make life hard for lots of people in very complex ways. So my thesis is that these things aren't really going to be just solved by waving magic wands or by asking the government if they will please take care of this stuff for us, because there's too much work to be done. So this idea of collective intelligence, really, it's not even really that complex. It almost goes without saying. One of the things that I say is, what you're thinking today, you might tell somebody, they might tell somebody else, and that somebody tells me. So what's in your brain, yesterday becomes part of what I'm thinking the next day. So we really are one big kind of social animal to some degree, and it's true that we rely on everybody else for just about anything we ever do. And so that doesn't mean that individual people aren't important, but the reality is that really we live in a very, very complex social environment, and there is such a thing as collective intelligence. And it predated the internet. We had collective intelligence, for thousands of years. But the internet does change things a lot. It's a new medium, and there's still opportunities to make it work for, I'll say, civil society. It's not just for the government and for large corporations to own and operate the way that they think is best. So there's lots of ways to think about collective intelligence. One way is to look who's benefiting from it, who's controlling how it's done, etc. And I think that as the amount of information increases, as the speed of transmission of information increases, there's more, there's the ability to collect information by the government or intelligence agencies is increasing exponentially. The nature of collective intelligence will probably change, and not necessarily for the best. So, some of these forms of collective intelligence are voting. Voting is a way that they get the opinions of lots and lots of people, and they count them up. Hopefully, they count them up accurately. We'd like the person who received the most votes to become the new person. Searching on the internet helps you because you can get access to information. At the same time, the people that are running the search engines are gathering all this information about you, and they are also selling your access to you to advertisers. So it's sort of an asymmetric kind of way of parceling out benefits. And so maybe it's a good thing in general, but maybe not. And really, I think this bottom line here is that really we can't let other people do all of the thinking. And I think that's really what it boils down to, and that's something that really is happening, I believe, and it makes it it puts the responsibility to some degree on universities, on colleges, on other schools, on students, on teachers to promote people to do their own sort of thinking. So I've been working with this concept of civic intelligence for about 10 or 12 years, and we didn't seem to have a term for the capacity of individuals and groups to think together and to work together on problems facing society. And so the absence of that concept made it, I believe, hard to think about what it is that we need. We need intelligent societies. We need people from from just regular citizens to elected officials to school teachers to everybody to participate in this civic sort of orientation. We can't. It's no longer even possible to think that the elites are going to sort of fix the problems for everybody else. In the U.S. right now, it's the highest difference between the very rich and the poorest that it's been in over 100 years. So I think the new communications infrastructure has really helped that transfer of wealth to go from the bottom up to the top. And so how much what responsibility are the people that are controlling the industries, etc.? What is the responsibility that they feel for the others? I think that some of them feel quite a bit of responsibility and are quite open to democratic procedures and processes and listening to the voices of other people. But I think that many are not. So this idea of increasing our civic intelligence, I think, is really quite important, and I don't know who or what is really agitating or advocating for it. So I've been working on this big kind of master list of capacities that I think are interesting or useful for developing civic intelligence, and this one might be better, more useful. Now I'll see if I can do the reverse translation. Now, I was trying to think what might be the difference between traditional classes where it's focused on the acquisition of knowledge and skills, and knowledge and skills is still important in civic intelligence. We still need to be knowledgeable about things. We still need to have a variety of skills, but other things are also very important, and they don't get the attention that they deserve. One is this idea of, I'll say, salient knowledge, which is the knowledge that's not universal or theoretic. It's relevant to one particular place. This idea of metacognition is very important. It's the ability of groups to actually think about how they think, because the way that we think isn't necessarily the most efficient or the most effective or the most broad-ranged, and so thinking about how we think is crucial. And this category, the second one, attitude and aspirations, all of these I think are quite important in terms of education. Social critique. We need, even if you think that your society is good in 99% of the way, there's still this 1% that probably could be changed. And so we need to all be thinking about this critique of society. It doesn't mean that we have to overthrow the system and get rid of everybody in the government, but it does mean that we are having some sort of a frustration about how the future is unfolding, and that we have to take a part. So there's social critique, social imagination. We need to be able to imagine how things might be, and this is something that isn't really taught in school, and I don't even know if it can be taught, but certainly we can discuss it and we can think about things like this, because how are things going to change if we don't imagine something different. And so this idea of self autonomy and self efficacy, we really want to, as educators, help students have trust in their own ability to accomplish things. And I know some of my students have said that their schooling actually has made them feel stupid. And if that's what they learned in school, that they were stupid, then that's more of a failure of the school than it is of the student. So I also want to mention things like courage and humility. We need to, sometimes we need to say things that might not be popular, and on the other hand, we don't want to go around saying that we have all the answers, because nobody has all the answers. And so I think this idea of humility is very important. The third category, social capital, talks about diversity, leadership, and desarrollo. I have to cheat. Team development. Team development. And then here, social networks are very important. Norms are important. Opportunities, and thinking about the rest of society. So it's hard for me to get feedback from what you all are thinking, but I hope that having this might be useful in thinking about education, the future of education, but also the effectiveness of organizations or groups that you might work with. These have all been sort of identified by lots of different scholars as being important for parts of the problem. What I've done with civic intelligence is try to put together a broad range list of attributes and not try to focus in on one. A lot of people are trying to say, I've identified the one most important thing. Well, all of these can be important in different situations. So one of my students broke it down into the knowledge part is the head. The organizational part is sort of your torso, your core. The attitudes and aspirations is your heart. And then you need to rest on these financial and other sorts of resources, and you can reach out to other people, etc., via the relational capital. So I liked seeing how Alicia mapped the different capabilities onto a human. So this part might be this is a little bit of a change in direction, but I think it might be useful in thinking about how one might apply some of these ideas of civic intelligence. And so this is a book that I put together. I worked with 85 other people on it, including Miguel, and this has 136 patterns in it. And so the pattern is something that you can use, but you can use it a different way depending on what the circumstances are. In theory, a pattern can be used 1,000,000 times over and over again and never used the same way twice. So I'm going to show you some of these patterns, but the patterns are they're seeds. They're kind of ideas that one would use to work on your own project. And so they're not precise like a recipe. And I'm lucky because one of my students translated all of these pattern cards into Spanish. So I'm just going to show you a variety of these cards and see what you think. So civic intelligence, indigenous media. These are two possibilities of just kind of ideas that you might that it might resonate with you, and you might do a project or write a paper, or it might inspire some investigation of some sort. So I'm just going to go through about 10 of these patterns, really not even necessarily speaking about them. Here's two more. Opportunity spaces, thinking about what sorts of opportunities one might want to put together or develop that will help other people to open up things that they could do or contribute. Meaningful maps. I could try to say them in Spanish, but I'm trying to learn Italian, and so I have a feeling that I would use an Italian accent, and it might even sound more ridiculous. But anyway, so opportunity spaces and meaningful maps. Community inquiry. This is the idea of trying to promote people to come up with their own questions, and then you build on the questions, and you ask people, and you keep going and expand that. Experimental school is another idea where you can come up either outside of the traditional school or within it, and you just sort of try new things. So teaching to transgress, this idea that one of the things that educators should be doing is kind of paradoxically teaching people to break the rules. You know, all of the major probably social gains and artistic masterpieces and everything else came from some sort of rule breaking originally. So what does that mean? It would have different meanings in different places. This is education and values. It's not necessarily part of the school system, but I think quite important. This is the voices of the unheard. There are lots and lots of people who just don't seem to show up in the discussion. They're not allowed, or they don't know they can speak, or they speak in a language that is not the dominant language of the country or the region, or generally the poor have very little voice in things, and so how do we help give voice to other people? This is a community animators, and it's the idea that sometimes it takes one or two people to work between two groups to help them help give voice to them, and to help show them the skills or the power or the knowledge that they actually had, that they weren't necessarily leveraging or being effective with. So I guess I only had those. Actually, there are 136 of these patterns, and they were all translated into Spanish. Not the whole pattern, but a little card, and so I can send them out to anybody that's interested and they're also online. But I guess I want to say a little bit about technology before I closed. And there seems to be, at least in the United States, a focus kind of on technology for the sake of technology, and less on how technology might be used for people. And I think it actually becomes a bit of an ideology where it's a sort of a system of knowledge in its own right. And actually, I'll just mention that one thing about technology, it's not always used in the best way. It actually helps us do the wrong things, and sometimes it helps us to do the wrong things faster and with more power and at greater distances. So it's not necessarily the greatest gift to humanity, even though it definitely can be very helpful. Okay, so I'm almost at the end here, but really I believe that educators, I meant educators, and particularly, educators that develop or use technology really have, I think, more responsibilities at this point because of the vast potential of information and communication technology, and we need to be thinking about how it can actually make people smarter rather than harness the intelligence of other people. And so this means I believe that there has to be a certain critique of the way that technology is going, also more focus on kind of creating your own technology and appropriating technology to use the way you want it to do, and not just go along and do it because everybody else does, or because Mark Zuckerberg wants us to do it, or because Google wants us to do it, but to be really thinking about why we're doing it. Also, just in education, I can speak for the United States more than I can for other countries, obviously, but there's a big focus on testing students all the time. I mean, the students in Seattle are getting tested every time they turn around, and so there's less opportunity to become more creative. There's less opportunity to explore things that are interesting to students because everybody is studying so they can pass these tests, and so they're not thinking about really how people learn so much as they're saying, how can we measure people like they're in a factory and we're doing a little check at the end to make sure that it works and it has all the knowledge that it's supposed to have. Also, a lot of things that are happening now is they're making it harder for teachers to actually teach and be creative by all these tests and things that the student must learn X and the student must learn Y before they go on and do something else. And so really civic intelligence means really more, I would say, partnerships with students, but also the world outside the academy. It can't be a silo or this impenetrable tower that only certain people get to participate with. It also basically means more leadership and courage on the part of teachers. So just a few thoughts. I think that one of the things that I would like to see is that in education we actually think about what I call civic intelligence more, put it uppermost. Uh, that implies integrating disciplines. Also, I think it means, especially for people working on technology, to really be inventing their own kind of distributed and collaborative venues. I mean, here we are using Google Hangouts, and it seems to be working pretty well. So I don't say abandon everything that other people are doing, but really, I think that we don't want to just sit around and wait and let the corporations decide what it is that the rest of us need. Some of the ideas that I find intriguing are these awareness and early warning platforms that actually give visibility to some of these problems that we have of say, deforestation or environmental problems, but also social problems. I think we might be able to understand them more in advance. And so, also, I'm just curious what you all think. So, the bottom line is that we create the future, so I can't say what it is because it's something that we are in the middle of creating. So I'd love to hear your thoughts or questions. Thank you. I can't hear you at all. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? No?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Hi. Hello?
Doc, do you hear me?
Yes, I do hear you.
Doc,
Yes.
we have some questions here in the auditorium. Then I try to translate for you, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. It's the first time I hear the topic of civic intelligence. Solo tengo una inquietud. I just have a question. Hablar de participación cívica en un país como México. To talk about civic intelligence in a country like Mexico.
Yes.
Que no escucho allá y no tengo que con allá. No puedes hacerlo hacer así. No, por ahí, para eso está esa computadora, ¿no? ¿El micrófono? A ver, pasar la pantalla. Ah, ¿me escuchas? No, dile que sigue hablando y lo voy a subir. ¿Quién te la va a hacer la prueba? Sí. ¿En español quieres que lo haga? Aquí está el traductor. Es que a lo mejor en inglés se me facilita un poco más. Ok. En este micrófono. Aquí estoy escuchando.
Hi, Doc.
Hi.
Hi, Doc. Can you listen to me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank you. My question is one. In this country, in a country like this one, it's very difficult to engage people in any kind of civic participation. This is the very first time, by the way, that I hear this term, that is civic intelligence. I love it. So the thing is, it's very difficult to involve people in everything, in all the areas, but especially in education. Speaking about education, our students are very used to ask what their grades are going to be. This is the very first thing they ask all the time. I'm a professor of economics, so what they want to know is how much they're gonna be graded with. So they don't care about the rest. So how can you work some kind of strategies, some kind of specific strategies to work with your students right now in college? They have been used to be graded all their lives. That's what they care the most. So now in college here, how can you change that view of the things? Because it's very difficult. They are used to do something else, and they have been used to that their whole lives. So what do you recommend to do here now in college, in our classrooms, with students who are not really used to this? What's your recommendation? Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question. I wish I had a magic wand or a silver bullet, but my sense is that basically you need to sort of start small, and maybe have one exercise where students need to ask a question that they would like to have answered, or I really have this. This issue is not just in Mexico. I believe it's worldwide, and so it's certainly the cultures and the institutions are not going to be changed overnight. But my other feeling is that there are students out there that really do have, at least somewhere in them, this feeling of, I would like to be have a little bit more freedom. I would like to have a little bit more of a voice in my education. I'd like to be a little more experimental. And so I think we just have to start carving out little spaces where these things are possible, and we just have to encourage people to not just rely on doing exactly what they're supposed to do so they can get the good grade, so they can get the good job. And one thing we could also say is that there are lots of companies that really want, that they need people, students that are creative, that aren't just going to wait for their precise instructions on what they're supposed to do. How do the people at Google, for example, 10% of their time is spent on trying to come up with new ideas, and so that's a model that actually the corporate world wants, is for people to not just be, you know, I would say soldiers or that just wait for instructions and then do what they're told. So does that help at all? Or I wish I could have more to say on that, I guess.
Doc, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ya está funcionando este micrófono. ¿Tú si quieres hacer alguna otra pregunta? Ya, pero si quieres te lo...
Primero felicitarlo. First, I'd like to congratulate you for your conference about the term of civic intelligence. I'd like you to make a deeper term about your origin. I mean, the term is vinculated to the theory of John Dewey about looking at the community and the civic relation as a way of life. Or if there are other authors, and the ones you have made your basis in of your investigation about this concept.
Well, I'm not exactly, I couldn't really understand everything you were saying. Are you looking for other concepts that are similar to civic intelligence? I think I need a little more clarification, or maybe you could ask again. I didn't catch everything that you said.
Digamos, los investigadores, las teorías en las que ha basado el concepto de inteligencia cívica. Si hay en él alguna reminiscencia de la teoría de John Dewey respecto al término cívico como forma de vida, o si hay otros investigadores en los que ha basado su teoría respecto a la inteligencia cívica. Esa sería mi pregunta.
If there's someone besides John Dewey, or if there's another person, the one you have based your concept of civic intelligence in.
Could you ask me that one more time?
Es que dice que se lo pregunto.
You have, besides John Dewey, if there are other authors, the ones you have based your concept of civic.
Yes. One of the authors that's most inspirational to me is John Dewey. Other people are talking about concepts like social learning and civic capacity and community inquiry. There's lots of terms and concepts that are similar. But to me there wasn't anything that really captured like civic intelligence. That was sort of my way of bringing in a lot of authors. The concept really isn't brand new. The first time that civic intelligence was actually used in English was 1905 or 1908. They were actually talking about the civic intelligence of a city. So it goes back, and now it's becoming more popular. I've heard people in public health use the term because it's, you know, you can't have public health if you don't have sort of a knowledge of disease and sanitation, etc., within the wider community. But I could send you a lot of references
Información y referencias.
to things.
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
And the change of the we constitute what we constitute today. So the problem to integrate the civic intelligence in the thought and the way of act of the students that we have to generate it starting from now. How much time do you think that it would be needed for the student reach the college level with the mentality of the civic intelligence, and how much time would they require for the teachers to innovate the models of teaching, the ones are based in civic intelligence?
How much time should teachers devote to that, to civic intelligence? Is that the question?
¿Cuánto pueden tomar los profesores en cuánto tomaría enseñarlo? ¿Esa es su pregunta?
How much time?
Yes.
I actually
De hecho, creo que
I actually teach classes where civic intelligence is the main thing that we study, and some of my students later on get jobs working in the community health field or public health, or they get jobs working in government, or they get jobs working in non-profit companies or NGOs, or even business. It's not. It's a broad. A student at Evergreen could take lots and lots of classes that have something to do with civic intelligence, and but they could also just study it for a little while and get some idea of what it was without necessarily studying it in depth. It's just like a person could have a major in say art history, and then they would know a lot about art history, but then another student might just take one class in art history and get a little bit of an idea what art history was about without necessarily becoming an expert in art history. I would rather see a little bit of these ideas coming into the curriculum than none. One of the one of the things that I would hope for is that some students would find it very interesting and exciting, and what I've seen at where I teach is those students sort of get the other students interested, so it becomes sort of more culturally acceptable to be interested in these issues. And some of the students that I've had have become immensely excited about the idea of civic intelligence, and they've gone on and gotten PhDs, and I'm still working with some of those students that have graduated. So it can sort of become more popular. I don't want to tell people that it's just a trivial matter, because institutionally there's a lot of pressure to sort of just keep teaching the way we've always taught. There's cultural inertia of, like you said, the students, but there's inertia in teaching as well. And you know, I don't say that everything should change, but I do believe that we need to be cultivating the sort of thing that I'm talking about a little bit more than we are doing now. I sent a question in via the chat window, and I was wondering if there's a student in the audience that might just give his or her reactions to the concept. I don't know if anybody wants to say that, or if there are any students in the audience, but I would appreciate hearing somebody's thoughts on the idea of more civic intelligence in their educational experience.
Doc, we have no more questions here.
Okay.
We want to thank you and send you your diploma for the lecture, okay?
Well, thank you very much. That's perfect.
I send you by mail, okay?
Okay. Bye-bye, Miguel. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias a todos. Entonces está publicado tanto en YouTube como en la página de Google Plus y en Google Hangout. Entonces con mucho gusto lo tuiteo ahora en mi cuenta de Twitter para que los que quieran tenerlo y después verlo ya y escucharlo con calma. Le queremos pedir a nuestro traductor, ven por favor para que te demos también la constancia. Hice un enorme esfuerzo el chico y estoy muy agradecido con las personas que siempre nos apoyan en este tipo de trabajo. Muchas gracias, maestra. Muchas gracias.
Un placer.
A nuestro compañero Dante Miranda Garduño, que nos hizo el favor de ayudarnos con la traducción. Muchas gracias. Y Ernestina León Perea también, muchas gracias. Y bueno, todos aquellos que quieran estar en contacto con el Dr. Schuller a través de la maestra Bustamante, ya va a tener todos los datos de contacto, etcétera, para todo lo que le ofreció. Yo tengo los juegos de tarjetas en español, tanto del Padre Language, que ya hemos probado tanto Horacio como el Dr. Sánchez, como la maestra Bustamante, su servidor para lecturas. Lo tenemos para las certificaciones.
Yo nada más para terminar les quiero comentar, yo creo que es muy importante